Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell y'all something real quick. Life is too short to spend it trying to please people who ain't ever gonna be pleased. You ever dealt with somebody who always gotta be the center of attention, always gotta be right, always gotta make you feel small just so they can feel big? That's a narcissist. Narcissists are not always easy to spot at first. They don't come into your life waving red flags and shouting about how they want to control you. No, they come dressed up as charm, confidence, sometimes even love. They make you feel seen, important, even special. But all of that comes at a cost. Because deep down, a narcissist isn't interested in loving you. They're interested in owning you. They're not invested in connection, they're invested in control. What makes a narcissist truly dangerous is not how loud they are or how aggressive they may seem, it's how calculated they are in seeking validation. They don't just want to be admired, they need it. They feed off attention like it's oxygen. Your praise, your approval, your agreement. Those are the tools they use to build their false sense of superiority. And when they feel like they might lose that, that's when the mask slips. That's when you see the real person underneath. Now, here's the secret nobody tells you. Narcissists aren't strong. They may look confident on the outside, but they're built on insecurity. The whole act is a performance, and your validation is their applause. The moment you stop clapping, the act falls apart. When you stop responding to their manipulation, when you stop giving them the reactions they crave, you take away the fuel they run on. And when that happens, you become dangerous to them. See, control is the game they play. Every compliment they give you is followed by a criticism. Every moment they lift you up is followed by a time they tear you down. It's a pattern, a loop they use to keep you spinning, confused, unsure of yourself, because as long as you're off balance, they're in control. As long as you need their approval, they're powerful. But the second you no longer care what they think, the second you decide your peace is more important than their praise, they lose. You see, the thing a narcissist fears most isn't confrontation. It's not arguments. It's not being called out. No, what they fear most is someone who is internally secure, someone who knows who they are, someone who doesn't flinch when approval is withdrawn. Because a narcissist wants to be the sun in your sky. They want to be the thing you orbit around. So when you stop spinning, when you center yourself instead of them, it terrifies them. You've just broken the illusion. You've taken away the one thing they thought they owned: your attention. You want to shut a narcissist down? You don't need to scream. You don't need to insult them. You don't need to match their energy. You just need to stop feeding the beast. Stop explaining yourself. Stop apologizing for setting boundaries. Stop reacting every time they try to push your buttons. That silence, that calm, that confidence, that's your power. And trust me, they'll notice. At first, they'll try harder. They'll push, they'll provoke, they'll guilt trip. They might even love bomb you all over again, trying to reel you back in with sweetness and fake vulnerability. But once they realize the switch is permanent, once they see that you're not just pulling back, you're done, they'll panic. Because now the control is gone. The validation is gone. And without that, they're nothing but a broken mirror trying to reflect back someone else's worth. You were never the weak one. You were just tricked into thinking your value came from them. But now you know better. And when you take back your need to be validated by someone who was never truly clapping for you to begin with, you don't just walk away, you rise. and they can't follow you there. Because narcissists crave control and validation. But the moment you stop giving it to them, you take away the one thing they fear most, losing their power over you. There's something powerful about a sentence that doesn't come from anger, doesn't come from ego, doesn't come from the need to fight, but comes from deep, quiet self-respect. That's the kind of sentence narcissists don't know how to respond to. See, when you live your life with real self-worth, when you've done the work to know who you are, what you deserve, and what you will no longer accept, your presence alone begins to shake people who rely on your confusion to stay in control. A narcissist thrives in chaos. They thrive when you doubt yourself. They thrive when they can cross boundaries and make you feel like you're the problem for noticing. But the moment you speak from a place of unshakable calm, the moment your voice doesn't rise, your heart doesn't race, and your words come from clarity instead of confusion, you disrupt the entire pattern they've built. One sentence can do that. One sentence can make them stop, freeze, even panic. But not just any sentence, not insults, not comebacks, not name calling, because they feed off drama, and those just pull you deeper into their game. No, the sentence that disarms a narcissist is one that closes the door quietly and completely. It sounds like, I'm no longer available for this, or you don't get access to me anymore, or the one that hits the hardest, I don't need you to like me. I like me. Each of those sentences says the same thing in its own way. I know my worth, I have boundaries now, and you're not above them. What throws narcissists off isn't your rage, it's your refusal. Your refusal to participate, your refusal to play along, your refusal to let them twist your sense of self anymore. That's what disarms them. Because what a narcissist wants most is for you to stay reactive. They want you explaining, defending, breaking down. They want you caught up in proving your point, apologizing for having needs, asking for crumbs of kindness. But when you've built yourself up to the point where you don't need anything from them, when your worth no longer depends on how they see you, that's when the whole dynamic collapses. They don't fear your anger, they expect it, they prepare for it. But your calm, your silence, your peace, that they don't know how to deal with. Because they were counting on you not realizing that you have a choice. They were counting on you staying confused about your right to walk away. But once you speak that one sentence, once you set that boundary and back it up with action, they see something they weren't prepared for. The end of their control. And this isn't about being cruel or cold. It's not about revenge or power plays. It's about recognizing that your time, your energy, and your emotional space are sacred, and that not everyone deserves access to them, especially not someone who has shown time and time again that they will twist your kindness, exploit your empathy, and drain your spirit for the sake of their ego. That sentence you speak isn't meant to hurt them, it's meant to protect you. When your sentence is rooted in self-worth, it doesn't need to be loud. It doesn't need to be long. It doesn't need to be followed by a speech. It stands on its own because it comes from a place narcissists can't reach. They can mimic confidence, but they can't create true self-worth. They can pretend to have boundaries, but they only do it to manipulate, not to protect. So when they see you doing it for real, with quiet strength and no need for approval, that's what rattles them. That's what they can't fake. That's what they fear. So when you finally say it, whatever version of that sentence rings true for you, know that it's more than just words. It's a declaration. It's a decision. It's the moment you stop dancing around their ego and start standing fully in your own truth. And from that moment forward, everything changes. Because now they're no longer in control of the story. You are. There's a kind of quiet strength that absolutely terrifies a narcissist. It doesn't come from aggression, it doesn't come from yelling, and it doesn't come from proving a point. It comes from someone who has stopped seeking permission to exist, someone who no longer waits for validation, attention, or acceptance. Narcissists don't know what to do with people like that because their entire power structure relies on your need to be seen by them, to be praised by them, to be loved by them. If you take that need away, you take away their control. You become a mirror they can't manipulate, and that's the one thing they can't stand. See, narcissists operate through a cycle of reward and withdrawal. They will give you attention, approval, and even admiration, just enough to get you hooked. Then, without warning, they pull it all away. And if you're still dependent on their approval, that silence hits like a storm. You start questioning yourself. You wonder what you did wrong. You try harder. You shrink a little. You get smaller so they can feel bigger again. That's the game. That's the trap. But once you see the pattern, once you understand that their attention is not love, it's leverage, everything changes. Because the moment you stop caring whether a narcissist is giving you attention or not, you step out of their control. You stop dancing for their praise. You stop chasing after their approval. You stop living in fear of their disapproval. And that kind of freedom is what they fear the most. They need to feel like you still want something from them, even if it's just an answer or a compliment or reaction. But when you want nothing, when you need nothing, they're left with nothing to offer you. And that's when the fear sets in. A narcissist's worst nightmare is someone who is indifferent to their presence. Not angry, not bitter, not resentful, indifferent. Someone who says, you can come or go, it doesn't change who I am. That's what shakes them. Because narcissists need to feel irreplaceable. They need to feel like the center of your world. And when you treat them like just another person, no pedestal, no extra weight, no special pass, they panic. You've exposed the truth they've been hiding from all along, that they aren't special, they're just loud. When you're someone who no longer needs their attention, they lose their ability to control your emotions. They can't bait you with silence. They can't punish you with disapproval. They can't reel you in with a breadcrumb of kindness because you've disconnected your self-worth from their opinion. And once that happens, there's no turning back. You've stepped into your power, and they no longer have access to it. And this doesn't mean you become cold or closed off. It simply means you've stopped being available for manipulation. You've stopped being a puppet in their hands. You've stopped reacting, and instead you've started choosing. Choosing when to engage, choosing how to respond, choosing whether they even get a place in your life. That kind of control, the kind you take back for yourself, is the exact control they've been trying to keep for themselves. They fear you when you know who you are. They fear you when you no longer need them to tell you that you matter. They fear you when you've learned how to validate yourself. Because now the strings they used to pull don't move you anymore. The tricks they used to play don't land. The moves they used to swing don't throw you off balance. You've become the one thing they can't stand, a person they can't manipulate. That's what makes you powerful. That's what makes them nervous, because they realize the show is over and the audience has left the theater. You're not clapping. You're not waiting for the next scene. You've walked away and you're not looking back. Narcissists only thrive around people who still need something from them. Take that need away and they crumble. And that's why they fear you, not because you're louder, stronger, or more aggressive, but because you've become immune to their approval. And once you stop needing it, they stop mattering. When it comes to dealing with a narcissist, most people think they need to argue their way out. They think they have to confront the lies, point out the manipulation, or finally say everything they've been holding in. But here's the truth. A narcissist doesn't fear confrontation. In fact, they thrive on it. Confrontation gives them fuel. It gives them attention, drama, and a reason to twist your words back on you. They love it when you raise your voice, when you defend yourself, when you try to prove a point. It keeps you engaged, emotional, and vulnerable to their tactics. But you want to know what really breaks a narcissist's grip on your life? It's not a fight. It's confidence. Confidence is quiet. It doesn't need to prove anything. It doesn't rise to bait. It doesn't chase, beg, or explain. And that stillness, that calm, collected strength is what a narcissist cannot handle. They're prepared for war, not for peace. They're ready for an emotional explosion, not a silent exit. When you walk away with your dignity intact, when you don't look back, when you don't need to say another word, that's when they realize they lost the one thing they never imagined losing, your respect. Not just for them, but for yourself. See, confidence changes the entire dynamic. You stop playing the role they cast you in. You stop reacting to their provocations. You stop needing them to admit what they did or apologize for how they hurt you. Because now you understand that your healing doesn't depend on their accountability. It depends on your own clarity. And that clarity only comes when you believe deep down that you deserve better, that you're not crazy, that you're not too sensitive, that you're not asking for too much, you're just asking the wrong person. A narcissist expects you to keep coming back for answers, for closure, for one last conversation. But when you become confident, you realize you don't need closure from chaos. You give yourself permission to leave without all the pieces put together. Because real confidence doesn't wait for a perfect ending. It creates a new beginning, one where your worth is no longer tied to their approval, one where your peace is protected, not negotiated. And this isn't about arrogance. It's not about pretending to be unaffected or building walls so high no one can reach you. Real confidence is soft but unshakable. It's rooted in self-awareness. It allows you to be kind without being naive, forgiving without being foolish, and strong without being hard. That kind of presence confuses a narcissist because they can't figure out how to get to you anymore. They'll try the same old tricks, guilt, charm, intimidation, but none of them work on someone who knows who they are. When you're confident, you stop over-explaining, you stop defending your boundaries, you stop giving second, third, and fourth chances to people who have already shown you who they are. And most importantly, you stop needing to be liked by someone who only loved you when you were easy to control. That shift is powerful because a narcissist can sense when you've changed. Not from what you say, but from what you don't say anymore. From the way you respond with silence instead of emotion. From the way you protect your peace instead of arguing for your position. From the way you walk away, not because you're weak, but because you're finally strong. Confidence doesn't scream, it whispers, I know who I am. It doesn't attack, it simply refuses to engage. And that's what a narcissist can't stand. Because they rely on your reactions to feel powerful. But when your confidence grows, their influence shrinks. Their words don't sting. Their games don't work. Their absence doesn't hurt. So no, the ultimate weapon isn't confrontation. You don't need to win the argument, expose the truth, or break them down. You just need to build yourself up. Because once you've found your confidence, their control is gone. And they know it. A narcissist wants to be the center of your universe. They want your happiness to orbit around their presence, their moods, and their approval. In their mind, your emotional state should always reflect how they treat you. When they give attention, you should glow. When they pull away, you should crumble. They want to believe that without them, you are lost. That without their voice, your mind is confused. That without their validation, you forget your worth. But the moment you show them that your peace does not depend on their presence, something shifts. They begin to realize they're not the sun in your sky anymore. And that, to them, is terrifying. A narcissist's biggest fear isn't losing you. It's realizing they never truly had you under control. They never had the kind of influence over you that they believed, because all that manipulation, all that gaslighting, all those tactics to keep you off balance, it only worked when you were still searching for peace through them. But once you've healed, once you've reclaimed your mind, once you've separated your inner calm from their chaos, they lose access to the one thing they really wanted: power over your emotion. There is something so powerful about being able to look at someone who once had you walking on eggshells and feel absolutely nothing. Not hate, not fear, not longing, nothing. Just peace, just clarity, just stillness in your soul. And that stillness, that detachment, sends a message louder than any confrontation ever could. You don't live here anymore. You don't live in my mind. You don't live in my heart. You don't live in the space where I used to question myself. That door is closed. That chapter is over. When you reach that level of healing, a narcissist no longer knows how to reach you. They try the same old things. Maybe they'll act like a victim. Maybe they'll try to provoke you. Or maybe they'll pretend they've changed. But nothing lands because you've stopped looking to them for answers, for healing, or for closure. You've made peace with the fact that you may never get an apology. You may never get the truth. You may never get the full story. And you're okay with that because your peace no longer requires their participation. That is the most powerful thing you can ever do. Remove someone's influence over your inner world. A narcissist feeds off attention, good or bad. They don't care if you love them or hate them, as long as you're still thinking about them, still reacting to them, still emotionally invested. But when you go silent, not to punish, but because you genuinely have nothing left to say, it hits them differently. That silence speaks. It says, you don't control me anymore. And that peace you carry now, it didn't come easy. It came after nights of doubting yourself. It came after questioning your own reality. It came after being made to feel like your emotions were wrong, your boundaries were selfish, your worth was conditional, But through all of that, you found your way back to yourself. You began to rebuild what they tried to tear down. You started to hear your own voice again, to trust your instincts again, to believe in your value again. And now you're no longer looking back to a narcissist. That transformation is a threat because they know they can't manipulate someone who has found peace within. They can't play games with someone who no longer joins the board. They can't hurt someone who no longer cares, and they hate that. They hate that they're no longer important to someone they once thought they owned. So the moment you live your life, breathe in your freedom, and smile in your healing without ever needing to remind them of what they lost, that's the moment they feel it most. That's the moment they realize they never had the power they thought they did. Because now they're watching you live in the very thing they cannot find. And that's what truly terrifies a narcissist. Not your anger, not your distance, but your ability to live a life where they are completely, beautifully, and entirely irrelevant. There's something about silence that makes a narcissist uncomfortable. Not the silence of fear, not the silence of submission, but the silence that comes from power. Real, calm, grounded strength. A narcissist expects you to explode. They expect you to cry, beg, defend, argue. They expect to be the center of your reactions. That's how they know they still have a hold on you. That's how they feed their ego. But when you stop reacting, when you stop giving them your words, your energy, your emotions, they don't know what to do. They panic in the presence of your peace. You see, narcissists aren't just seeking attention, they're seeking control. And your voice, especially when you're hurt or trying to explain yourself, is fuel to them. It shows you're still invested. It shows you're still hooked. But silence, intentional silence, tells a different story. It says, you no longer have access to my energy. It says, I see through the games and I'm no longer playing. And that quiet, that stillness, it drives them mad. Because it forces them to face something they've spent their whole lives running from. Their own irrelevance in someone else's life. This kind of silence isn't passive. It's not about avoiding confrontation out of fear. It's a silence rooted in clarity. You're not speaking because there's nothing left to prove. You've realized your peace matters more than being understood by someone who never listened in the first place. You're done rehearsing conversations in your head. You're done trying to find the perfect words to finally get them to care. You're done wasting your breath on someone who only ever hears what benefits them. That's when silence becomes your loudest boundary. It's not cruel, it's necessary. Narcissists don't fear insults. In fact, they expect them. They prepared for them. They know how to spin them, deflect them, and use them against you. But silence, they can't spin that. They can't twist words you never said. They can't argue with what isn't there. They can't use your calm to justify their chaos. And that quiet resistance, that refusal to engage, exposes them for what they are. Loud, insecure, and desperate for. When you go silent, you give yourself the gift of space. Space to heal, space to breathe, space to hear your own thoughts without their influence. That space becomes sacred. It becomes the environment where you remember who you are, what you deserve, and what you'll never tolerate again. And it's in that silence that you find strength. Not the kind of strength that needs to be loud, but the kind that doesn't flinch when tested, the kind that no longer needs to be seen to be felt. A narcissist fears that kind of strength because it tells them the game is over. Not because you shouted, "I'm done," but because you acted like it. Your silence is proof that they no longer control the narrative. They can say what they want, they can accuse, project, manipulate, but you're not reacting, you're not validating, you're not defending. And in their world, that's the worst thing that can happen, losing the spotlight. You terrify a narcissist not by trying to hurt them, but by refusing to let them hurt you. That's what silence does. It protects you. It guards your peace. It keeps you out of battles that were designed to exhaust you. And the best part is, it doesn't need to be explained. Your silence is the explanation. Your absence is the answer. Your stillness is the sentence they never saw coming. So don't be afraid to say nothing. Don't underestimate the power of walking away without a dramatic speech. Let your silence do what your words never could: set you free. Because at the end of the day, the loudest sound a narcissist will ever hear is the quiet strength of someone who finally chose themselves. And no insult, no argument, no manipulation can compete with that.